Hello and welcome back to another YouTube. Today I am going to be talking about how I use Gantt charts to plan projects. Hi, I'm Julia Ravey. I am a final year PhD student who studies neuroscience, and now I am a science communicator. But throughout my PhD and now outside of my PhD, I used Gantt charts to really keep myself on track and feel super organized with my projects. So today I wanted to talk you through the tutorial that I use. I will show you on my computer. That is why my face is so close to the camera right now, because my camera is on my desk and I feel like, hello, like so close. So I'll jump on my computer and show you how I made these Gantt charts. So I make mine using Excel and a really simple set of instructions. I put the link in the description below. There are also softwares on how to make Gantt charts, but I think more so this video is about how I made a Gantt chart and how I used it, because I think anyone can make a project chart and a project flow, but it's more so how you make it in the first place, like how do you decide what goes on it, and then how do you use it day to day. So that is what hopefully this video will do. I'll be talking through how I use this during my PhD. So my project is going to be experiments from my PhD, which have all been sort of anonymized, so you can't really tell what I did for my PhD. But I also use this now for my projects outside of work, and you can use it for anything really, from planning an event, you could use it for health and fitness. Gantt charts can be used in many ways, and I just find them really nice to be able to see a bit far ahead, a bit into the future of where I want to be in a few months' time, but then also use it week to week to dictate what I need to focus on. So if you're wondering what a Gantt chart is, it's just a project plan that spans over a few months. Normally I do mine for 3-month periods, and it's when you map out when you're going to do certain tasks in that time period. So that's what a Gantt chart is. It sort of looks like a flow of information. So the first thing I do when I am making a Gantt chart is actually nothing to do with making the Gantt chart. It is to write a list of the things that are going to be on the Gantt chart. And this actually takes me a good bit of time. I would say when I was doing my PhD, I would spend the course of a week collating this list together, because what I like to do would be reflect on the work that I've done so far and think about what results have I got from that work? And so therefore, what do I want to continue with and take forward? What experiments could I do based on those results? And then also, what have I missed in the past 3 months, which I think could be important for my thesis. My PhD naturally was split into 3 sections. So for me, I would go through each of these sections. I'd get pen, paper, and write down in my notebook exactly where I was with each of these 3 sections, just giving myself a really clear overview. Once I had this list, I would then prioritize the order of the tasks. So I would think, okay, what in this list is most important for me to get done immediately? And from there, I would rank things based on, the most important and crucial things that I need to get done in this next time period. So that's why it doesn't matter if this list gets really long. Mine would be super long and you'd feel a bit like, oh my goodness, I have so much to do. But what I would do is think, okay, what can I get done in 3 months? And then I would sort of just draw an invisible line, and all of the stuff that fell below that line, I would then consider for my next Gantt chart in 3 months' time. In terms of the details for these tasks, I should say, you want them to be quite broad, but not vague. So for example, with my type of PhD, biology based, if I was doing a technique like a Western blot, I wouldn't just write Western blot for my task on the list. I would write Western blot of, and then the samples that I wanted to look at, and have it as that. So it's not super detailed of like why you're doing that task and all the tiny little intricacies that go into making a Western blot. Just a Western blot of these samples. That is the level of detail that you want for these tasks. Next step. The next thing you need to do is to order the items in your list based on their timings. This bit can be a little bit fiddly, but we will get there. We will get there. So for me at this point, I had 3 lists because I had 3 sections of my PhD of different projects. This part was about combining those lists together and thinking about how long each task would take. So what I would do is write down next to each task how many days it will take me to do that task. And all I can say here is overestimate, especially if you're doing science. Even if you're not doing science, always give yourself wiggle room. So if you think a task would take you 3 days, give yourself 5. If you think it's going to take you 2 weeks, give yourself 3. You'd always rather finish earlier and have that leeway than to be underestimating your time and feeling really rushed and putting too much into your Gantt chart. Then that means you'll lose motivation to look at it and then feel really overwhelmed. And yes, we don't want that to happen. This is meant to help you feel in control. So once I have a big list of all the things I want to do in that 3 months with their durations next to them, this is when I jump to my computer. So let's jump. Hello, I'm on the computer now. So I now have my Excel open, and what I've got here is 4 columns, which are start date, end date, description, which are my tasks, and then the duration. So that was what I was just talking about. I would give each task a duration. And as you can see from my tasks here, this is actually from a Gantt chart that I did during my PhD, but I've taken away like all of the actual details. I'm just gonna move these over here a second, because what I wanna do is show you a little bit more about how I actually order the tasks. So the first thing that you should do when you're making your order is to think about the tasks that are gonna take the longest time. So for me, my tasks that would take a really long time in my PhD were my cell culture tasks. So really getting in those long tasks first is important, because yeah, you need to start them off so you can actually, get them finished in a 3-month block. Then what I would do is all of the smaller tasks, which take between 3 days to 7 days, 8 days, then I will fill them in around the longer tasks. And normally what I would do is do them in order of importance and also in the natural order that they need to be done. And that's how you should order them in your Gantt chart. Now for this really long task, the cell culture task that I do, even though it takes me 70 days to do, day to day, it's only 15 minutes a day. All I have to do is go into the lab and feed the cells. So I know that during this 70-day window, I can do a lot of other experiments as well. So that will be ticking along in the background while I'm doing a lot of other things. So the way you arrange these tasks is completely up to you, but yeah, just really think about getting those longer tasks in as soon as possible so they're started, and the most important things start as early as possible, just in case they don't work or you need to repeat them, or something goes wrong, something crops up, like for me, a pandemic, then you can sort of make sure that the most important things are like ticked off the list. So to give task dates, all you have to do is look at how long each task is going to take, pick a start date for it, and then add on the duration and say this is when it should end. And for me to do this bit, I'd normally just pull up my calendar and look at the actual physical dates. So assign all your tasks to dates. And then once that's done, we can make the Gantt chart. Woo! The way to do this is to go on to insert, and then you want to go on to chart. And the chart you want is this type of horizontal bar chart. So you add that. At the minute it's empty because we haven't selected any data to go into it. And then what we want to do is add the data. So we right click and we go on to select data. I just didn't speak throughout that bit because I was confused, but I think this is correct. Hello, we have a Gantt chart. So all I did there was select this data, the start date, as my series, which is put it boo, 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 along the x-axis there. We can make that bigger, you can see. Amazing. So the next thing you want to do is, instead of these charts being, as you can see now, they're just extending out all the way, you want them to be like a block of when you're actually going to be doing the task. So we go back onto the chart, select data, we add another series 2, and this one is going to be our duration, so this period of time. So what you can see here, the orange bars on the end are actually the periods of time that you want to be doing your work. Now, you can see here that our chart starts in June, but the tasks don't start until August. So to change these dates, so we actually are starting the Gantt chart with our date of interest rather than having this big blank space, you just double click on the date, it comes up on the side here, and you just change the minimum. So I remember this was just a case of trial and error really. So at the minute it's on 43,620, let's go 43,700. See, that's now the 23rd of the 8th, which is I think it's a little bit too, yeah. So let's just decrease that slightly. There we go. So our Gantt chart now is a bit more centered, and yeah, that's just a bit of trial and error there, but it's quite straightforward. Then all we can do is see these blue bars here. We will click on them. We can change their color to no fill, and we'll change their border to having no line. So what you end up with is your actual Gantt chart without these lines in there. And you can just make this bigger so we can actually see. There we go. So there's your Gantt chart all sort of filled out. So in order to change the numbers into the actual tasks, we can go on to select data when we click them. And what we want to change here are the labels. So we want the labels to be not numbers, but the actual tasks themselves. So what we do here is go onto here, drag down, drag, and press OK. And then what you can see here is we have our actual tasks as the axis, which is much nicer to read. The last thing we really want to do is we want to change the order of this axis. At the minute, we've got the first task at the bottom and the last task at the top. This is really simple. You just double click on the labels, and then on the side, I'm going to have to move me slightly out of the way. Hello. We go to axis options and then click categorize in reverse order. Woo! And then what we have is a lovely Gantt chart, yay! Now there are other ways to make Gantt charts not using that tutorial. You can actually use, I think there's an actual Excel program or Microsoft program that you can use to make Gantt charts. But if you want to make it just using Excel, then there you have it. Quite straightforward once you get your head around where you need to click. Not too bad. Now what I would do is I color code my Gantt chart. I used to color code it by task, but now instead I just found it really easy to have gray meaning not started, green meaning in progress, and pink meaning complete. So I would just color in the individual bars. You can also do more bars than one. If you click on them like that, you can change all of the colors so they can all start off as the gray color, which is what I want them to be because they haven't been completed yet. And then as you go through, you can just change the color to be whatever you want it to be. So you could have it as like a green color when you're progressing through a task. And then if you want it to say you've completed it, have it as, I used to have it as a really bright pink color, but that's not there, so orange will do. And then you can just have a nice visual for when you've actually finished a task and where you're up to and how many tasks have been started. So that essentially is how I make the Gantt chart in Excel. It's pretty straightforward and it's just a really nice visual to have. Now how I use it week to week, because it's nice to make a 3-month plan. Like, I feel like so many of us make these big plans and then sort of put them in a folder and forget about them. For me, I would have my Gantt chart open every day when I was in the lab. I'd have it open on my computer and just check in to see where I was up to. I really liked having it open as well because I could change the colours from like green to pink and be like, oh, I've completed the task. It just feels really nice. But then what I would do is every Friday afternoon, I would have an admin afternoon. That's where I just sort of sort through everything that's happened in the previous week and plan forward for the next. That is when I would really use my Gantt chart. I would pull up my Gantt chart and I would just see, okay, what did I get done this week and what was I planning on doing next week according to this plan. If everything's up to date, I just take what's in my Gantt chart for that week, and then that's when I will break it down into more specific tasks. So if we use the example again of Western blot for certain brain homogenates, that is like a 3-day task, but within those 3 days I have to do quite a lot of different things. So then that's when I would break down the chunk that's in the Gantt chart into more specific tasks, and I would then time block those into my calendar. So I'll show you really quickly on Google how I would do that. So let's just jump onto my calendar here. As you can see, I time block my calendar every day anyway, and these are just always the blocks that I have in my calendar because now I work 9 to 5. So just for example, let's say I'm doing a Western blot over 3 days, what I would do is edit the blocks that I have in my calendar to fill in the really specific tasks that I've just come up with. So I just would come up with a list on a piece of paper with a pen in my to-do list book. I'd write it all down as a list and then I just fill it in to my calendar and then really simply go through my time block calendar and add in and change the blocks to what I actually need them to be. Really straightforward, but doing this for my entire week based off my Gantt chart. If there were tasks in my Gantt chart that I hadn't quite completed or the timers had changed, I would just go back into the Excel and change that duration. So what I mean by this is this column here, the duration column. If you change the number in that, the corresponding bar in the Gantt chart should change. So for example, say this Western block took me, instead of 9 days, it took me 12. If I write 12 in there, then you see this bar goes a little bit longer as well. So you can just shuffle things around if things take longer than you anticipate. And if you change the start date here, to say I started it a few days later, say 23rd, then it jumps along. If you saw it, just jumped from there to there. So it's really, really easy to edit. Plan in advance with the best intentions of getting it done to the plan you have, but always be flexible and check in with the chart you've made regularly. And for me, I just found this really reduced overwhelm. I don't know, like sometimes when I have a lot on my plate, if I haven't got a plan, I really don't want to do anything. My brain's like, oh my God, I've got so much to do. I don't even know where to start. But if I have it already all in my calendar, blocked in specific times, then all I have to do is go in and follow it like an instruction manual. Just go in and follow what I've already set for myself. For my PhD, it saved me so much drama. Like, I knew my Gantt chart was there, and if I felt, I don't know what I'm doing, I could just go to my Gantt chart and be like, oh yeah, I need to do this next. Great. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions or comments, then drop them below. And if you want more neuroscience-based productivity tips, mindset tips, and to learn more about your wonderful, amazing brain, then subscribe to the channel or catch me over on social media, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.